Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. A little later in the program, we're going to talk about the initiative process and those people who want to squash it. But first, we want to talk about public information becoming public. So two survivors from the Denver Post now doing completely different things. Jeff Roberts, who is with an organization called the Freedom of Information Coalition. Do I have that right?
The Colorado Freedom of Information Coalition.
So close, so close.
Just the state.
Just the state.
The state's name.
All right, that works.
Yes.
And you know her, you love her, you haven't seen her often enough, from the Colorado Independent, Susie Greene. Say hi. That's
Hi.
it? That's it? All right. This is an issue that really defies left-right, I think. You know, you and I, we get along fine personally. Politically, we're
not a thing in
not
common.
A thing in common.
We like children.
Well, you like children.
No, we agree on that, I think.
Well, I mean, I've got child support payments, but I don't like children.
Right.
They're hideous
we
little
can
creatures.
agree on public information.
Can we?
We can agree to agree.
We can agree to agree.
Yes.
All right, so we disagree on everything, but we have this coalition going that includes correct thinking people like me and some rather fanciful thinking people like the liberals on the Independent, as well as hardcore radicals like Ethics Watch and the ACLU and others. All right, you can use your own descriptors.
Hardcore radicals, yes.
Yes,
we have the Independence Institute, we have Ethics Watch, the Common Cause, but we also have the newspapers of the Colorado Press Association, broadcast outlets in the Colorado Broadcasters Association. So we have organizations from all parts of the spectrum in our group.
And so I'm in unfamiliar territory here, and that I feel like the token conservative in this coalition. But tell me what this coalition is all about.
Okay.
What it is you're worried about.
What we're worried about. Every year on James Madison's birthday, newspapers and civic organizations and libraries celebrate Sunshine Week. And this is to call attention to our laws that allow for open records and access to meetings. We celebrate that once a year on Sunshine Week. We think we're trying to make every day Sunshine Week. And so what we're trying to do is be an education and advocacy organization for all of Colorado citizens and journalists in particular, to help them navigate these laws, help them answer questions about these laws, but also provide a lot of information on what's sort of the state of how people are using these laws or maybe abusing them.
We in this state have laws to make sure that public information is public. Now, you and I might look at these information differently, but we want to go to the meetings that elected officials have. We want to see the documents that they've created. We want to see the communications between them. Mm-hmm. But it's not always as easy as that to get. It sounds like we have this great law. You're a journalist. You've been through this a long time. Is it as easy as people think to make public information simply available? What's the hurdle?
Well, first of all, I want to start out by saying sometimes it's really easy. Sometimes, police in Denver beat people up and I find out about it and I call the lawyer in the safety department. I write her a letter and I ask her for a certain report and she sends it to me. It's a nice thing. We've had it going for a long time. She gets it. She understands the law. There are some jurisdictions, one in particular, the 18th Judicial District in Colorado, that doesn't get it. And the hurdle is you ask for something that by law is public information and they come up with a zillion reasons why they're not going to give it to you or why they're going to redact everything but the prepositions out of it, or they're going to charge you for it. And sometimes very important issues hinge on these documents, like whether somebody was tried fairly or not when they're sitting on death row.
I've had the same experience at Independence. As you know, Todd Shepard is our reporter there, does great work on Complete Colorado as well, and he does a lot of information requests. We call them core requests in this state, Colorado Open Records Act, and we find that there's some governments that actually say, is this what you needed? You need something more?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll put it on a disc for you. We did a survey of I think payroll in different colleges, and CU and Mines were impossible to work with. Colorado Mesa University gave us everything we wanted, send it on a digital file, and then we got a phone call. Is there anything else you'd like? But what's been difficult is the inconsistency, even though they're all acting under the same law, and some of them are acting under the same state government. Some of them are even in the same department. This is not an unusual problem, right?
It shouldn't depend on where you live or who you get on the phone. It should be consistent throughout the state. And often a barrier to information is the cost of information. The law could say that it's open, but it'll be $3,000. And so if you're a reporter and you get a bill for $3,000, most news organizations aren't going to be able to pay that unless the story is really, really important. If you're a citizen, that's pretty unaffordable too. So you're going to go on to the
important thing to say that these laws are not just for you guys as reporters. This is for any citizen who wants to know what's going on in their city council, their library district, that these communications, these internal documents, with rare exception, they're public records.
They're public
but you have
records.
to pay for them.
Right, and there are
You
exceptions.
don't always have to pay for them.
Don't always, but often.
You don't always have to pay for them. In fact, often you don't have to pay for them.
Usually you don't, and you shouldn't.
But there are what they call research and retrieval fees, for instance. So if they have to go dig into some boxes, or they have to go dig through their computer files, and it takes them a while to compile this for you, they are allowed to charge something. And the law so far, up until this point, hasn't really been specific about what they can charge. So there's been case law, Court of Appeals decisions that have given some guidance on what can be charged. There's a bill in the legislature that just passed, sitting on the governor's desk, that actually standardizes what they can charge. It says it would be no more than $30 an hour with the first hour free.
Not only is it a charge for personnel time, but Todd Shepard did a great bit of research and went around to the different governments and said, how much does it actually cost for you to print something on a piece of paper, a photocopy charge? And by law, they can they can charge us 25 cents a page. And if you're doing something that's 1,000 pages, instead of putting it on a disc for free, they can put it on this and make it on paper, and you're paying a lot of money. He found that the average cost is about 3 or 4 cents. So the 20 cents per page is largely punitive, and it's there to dissuade you. Is this a common experience for you?
It is. I mean, less so as everything gets more digital. It's pretty rare these days where anyone gives me anything in paper. And often, for me, if I'm looking at court documents, I don't want the paper because there are boxes and boxes. I just want the ability to go to the courthouse and sit there and go through them. One thing that I have to say in this whole topic that almost never gets said, largely because public information officers who work for the government are often reporters, ex-reporters. And so I think reporters like not to talk about other reporters or reporters who have lost their jobs. But it needs to be said that these people are being paid public tax dollars largely to impede our access to the information that they used to be fighting for when they were reporters.
Right.
There is a conveyor belt from the Denver Post HR department. When you get laid off, you go and you become a public information officer for some government agency.
God forbid, but it's true.
And what these governments will say that they're not really worried about the reporter or usually the citizen activist even who's making the request. What they usually are concerned about is some law firm in New York or some data mining company that makes some huge request that could take them hours and hours to fill. And the information, Jeff Wilson, who's the general counsel for the Municipal League, cites this example all the time, where the information could actually be on the internet already. It could be on the city's website. But the law firm says, no, it would actually be cheaper for you guys to compile it for us than to have our people do it. So I don't know how many they actually get like that, but that's the argument that they've used.
And I get that. And also you'll hear, and for on their behalf, let me say this. Smaller governments worry that if they don't have the manpower to go back and go to find files and all the rest, and I think there's some legitimacy to that, but it doesn't mean that it should be illegal and it shouldn't be prohibitive.
No, and back to smaller governments are in smaller areas. In smaller areas, there are fewer people who probably are used to filing Freedom of Information requests, sometimes not. Right now in Montrose has an airport. It's owned by the city. There's an operator, a private operator that's operating it for the city. there was a decision to put that contract up for a bid. And so a bid came in, and on Monday, the Montrose City Council was supposed to vote on this, but they wouldn't release any information about that bid, the details of that deal, to the public. So they were going to vote on this really very major, for a city contract, who runs the airport is a big deal, right? It was a 20-year contract. People wanted access to it. They said no, and they were just going to vote on it on Monday. And then before everybody kind of freaked out over the weekend, and they delayed it until next Monday, and hopefully they'll delay it further until some real sunshine, that's what we're talking about, can be shed on that document. Because, you know, that's a small place, and if that newspaper there hadn't been making a stink about it, and a couple other folks hadn't been making a stink about it, that would have been done completely in the darkness.
This is what's interesting to me, though. I can't write a naughty email to you 20 years ago without Google being able to find it like that at any time. But when it comes to a government file or a government email, well, we're going to have to recreate the database. It's going to cost this much, when the rest of the world can't get rid of these documents, these electronic things that you can pull up instantly. Todd Shepard did a core request to the secretary, to the chief of staff for Hickenlooper. The day after, I want to see the emails you had yesterday, and there were none.
Right.
Now, of course there were some, but she deleted them, and there was no way to get them back.
And there's nothing in the law that says how long they have to keep them.
Right.
So the legislature, and you did a story on this, has a policy that says after 30 days we recommend that you delete your emails unless they've been requested as part of a KORA, and then you can't delete them. But routine things, go ahead and get rid of them.
Right, and the way the world has changed even since I left the Post a couple of years ago till now is when you email elected officials now, you're not emailing them on their government email address. You know, they don't use those addresses. They use their personal addresses that aren't really accessible for freedom of information. And so just all the ground rules have totally changed. They do all sorts of things to skirt sunshine.
Texting, you know, that how do you know? I mean, you know that public officials are probably texting one another. In some cases, it's probably a meeting, an official meeting, if they do that. But how do you, as a citizen or a reporter,
let's wrap this up. What is it you guys want? I mean, you've been able to pull together this incredible coalition of left and right, very ideologically driven groups, reporting groups, broadcasters. Really succinctly, what is it you want?
I think we want transparency. It's something that reporters work on all the time on behalf of citizens. There's a lot fewer reporters out there now than there used to be. Journalists who are watching these things on behalf of the public. So then there's a lot more people in the public area who are doing this themselves. We just want them to be armed with the information, what they need to know.
Jeff,
to
thank you. I got to run. Susie, thank you. Stay tuned. You're going to love this.